For me, the reality is it's not going to work.
We can't protect every business.
Jobs are under threat or going.
These are tough times, and there will be more to come.
Hi, I'm Tara Evans, Digital Consumer Editor at The Sun, and I'm here with Matt Haycox, small business expert and entrepreneur. And every week we're here to discuss how small businesses can survive coronavirus. So, Matt, there's been lots of talk this week about how businesses and offices will continue to operate once the lockdown is lifted. What are you thinking for your businesses?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly has, Tara. I mean, I spend most of my time either on my own businesses or talking to businesses that I'm invested in, discussing what we're going to do, when we come out of this, what changes we're going to make within our businesses. So I completely empathise with the rest of the population, the rest of the business owners, because it is such a massive time of uncertainty. And I guess what the toughest part is that uncertainty. Every day we get more commentary. We get guidelines from the government, but everything's very much based on estimates, on guesswork, on supposition. So it's very, very difficult for any of us to plan at all at the moment. I mean, I guess we're working in our businesses under the guise that ultimately common sense will prevail, and this isn't this isn't exclusive to any certain area or even businesses that have been successful during lockdown. I mean, it was only a couple of days ago I had a delivery arrive at my house. Quite a big heavy delivery, and I've gone out to the delivery van, and the guy doesn't want me to help him take the thing out the van, and so even businesses that are not having financial issues now have still got practical issues to deal with. For me, it's really key that we keep positive, we keep our ears peeled for the further guidelines and information that's going to be coming out over the coming days, and really stay communicative with our peers, collaborative with people in our businesses, so that we can come up with practical solutions when we're out of this. But I mean, for me, the business owners I speak to, as much as they're worried about practical solutions, they're also much more concerned ultimately about when are they going to be back open, because business will find a way. We will find a way to make the practical things happen. But right now, the people I'm talking to are much more concerned about the financial impacts than the practical ones.
And I've heard a lot of people talking about, will workers get addicted to furlough? What can you do to help make your staff feel safe when they're coming back to work?
I think, similar to the last point where we're talking about the unknown, one of the biggest issues for me with the reason that people are feeling unsafe or, nervous about coming back to work or nervous about getting back into the population is the uncertainty. And fear comes from uncertainty. And right now, we're getting either not enough messages from the government, or we're getting mixed messages, or again, we're working on supposition. I think what's really key for business owners out there now, whether that's a business owner, whether that's a manager of a team, whether that's the head of a family, I think this is a real lesson for us all, that communication is imperative. To behave as a leader and to keep confidence in your team, in your subordinates, in your peers. What we should really be using this as a chance as business owners to do is to make sure we don't make those same communication errors. And I think whilst we may not have the answers for ourselves now and for our team, what we can do is we make sure that we're keeping communicative with our team, that we are letting them know that we will be talking to them regularly, that we will be telling them that as soon as we know something, we will be passing that information on to them. Pick a day or pick a time, pick a method of communication, whether that's Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever method you want to use to communicate with your team, and be there to communicate the message of the fact that we are going to get through this together. We are going to make you feel safe at work. And even if the answer today is, I haven't got anything to tell you until next time, I will still be here to communicate with you and stand by you during this process.
So some of the measures that we've seen muted are that restaurants and bars will have to observe the 2 metre distance rule, that, perhaps only pub gardens will be able to open at first. In offices, we're going to see workers sitting away from each other. So, office plans are going to have to be changed. There might be a tier of people who are allowed to come in, so only a certain number of staff are allowed in the office at each time and you have to rotate. I mean, how's that going to affect you?
I mean, for me, the biggest effect out of all of that is going to be in leisure businesses. I mean, look, you know, whilst there may be practical concerns to deal with in offices when we come back to work in the office, you know, the reality is we've adapted to home working, and even if that means there's going to be less people in the office, you know, we will find a way to make it work. For me, the much bigger concern is in bars, pubs, restaurants, leisure. You know, as you know, I'm heavily invested in that sector, and I also have a lot of, you know, customers and colleagues who are in that sector. I mean, you know, literally this afternoon I was talking to a fellow business owner who's got 6 or 7 bars, and you know, whilst I guess people are saying, how is this going to work? You know, for me the reality is it's not going to work. You know, if you've got a bar or a pub or a restaurant, you know, operating on, let's say, 2-meter social distancing rule, which is probably, let's say, 30% capacity to what it normally is. You know, from a customer's perspective, that, you know, you're not going to want to go into a bar. I mean, if you go to a bar, Tara, you know, you're going in because you want to hang out with your friends. You know, you need a level of closeness. You know, for you as a consumer, it's not going to work, and for the operators and owners of these businesses, you know, the economics just don't work when they're trading at 30% capacity. So, you know, for me, there are much bigger concerns at play than the actual practicalities, because even if we find a way around the practicalities, the economics just don't work. So I think, you know, it's going to be very much watch this space again, and see what further guidelines and what further assistances ultimately are going to be made to people in those sectors.
I suppose we need to wait and see what the measures are, because, you know, if they reduce it so that you can, you know, mix with 2 households, for example, which is what it is in Germany, then you could potentially go to the pub with 2 other households. And I don't know about you, but I like the idea of getting a table at the pub.
I guess there's always a positive in these negative situations, right? You know, it cuts both ways. I mean, yes, us as consumers might like the chance to get served quicker or get the table at the pub, but then I guess as the business owners listening to this, they're probably going to be a little more concerned about not having enough money to pay the bills.
I suppose it's hard to know, you know, when they lift these measures, they can't just do it all at once. So these businesses can't, you know, just flip back to normal. There's not going to be that return to normality that we previously thought there would be, I think.
Completely.
So you know, what other measures have been announced for small businesses this week?
The biggest measure that's been announced this week is the bounce back loan scheme, which is effectively let's say a micro version of the CBILS loan, you know, which we've been talking about over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and which, you know, obviously many business owners are familiar with, but have been unable to get the money from. Now, the old, you know, without going into too much detail on the CBILS loan, you know, that is a loan scheme from £50,000 up to, I think it's 5 million, you know, quite a large number anyway, which is 80% backed by the government. But there is quite a high threshold to actually be able to be qualified for that loan, and I have come across, I tell you, I think I've probably only come across 2 people who've physically been paid out a CBILS loan. I mean, not many businesses at all do I know who've qualified for it. There's a much lower criteria for acceptance on the bounce back loan. Yes, it's a lower amount of money, it's up to 50,000, so it's £2,000 to £50,000, but the big difference, well, there's 2 big differences. One is it's 100% government backed, not 80% government backed. And secondly, and most importantly, one of the key thresholds of qualifying for the CBILS loan is that you had to prove that your business was both a viable business before Corona and is also a viable business after Corona. And there isn't that second test on these CBILS, on these bounce back loans. You only have to prove you had a viable business pre-Corona. It's a much simpler application process. It's all very tick box online. So I know a lot of people who've applied for these already and who have been approved. I also know people who have physically received the money, and I think at the moment there's 10 or 11 banks or financial institutions which are able to offer these. The CBILS loan is something like 45, and again, you know, only today I saw more people and more lenders announced onto the CBILS scheme, so it will only be a matter of time before more lenders are also on the bounce back scheme as well. So I think for me this is probably one of the most exciting announcements for small businesses since the whole corona issue has started, because it's something that we are physically seeing the money hit the bank and being of actual genuine benefit to business owners, rather than just theory.
Great, thanks, Matt. So this week we've got a question from Joe, who is an eyelash technician.
I have a small business doing lash extensions. I've had to close obviously due to coronavirus. I had a successful business before all of this. However, I've had no income nearly now for 2 months. So I've had to apply for universal credits whilst I wait for the grant to be issued. They are now saying that they're looking at opening some businesses, applying the social distancing. I've seen as well that this could include like hair salons and nail salons. However, my job involves coming into contact with people's eyes an hour at a time. So I can't see how I could start up again with this in place. So I'm worried that we won't be told to stay closed, and that the decision will be mine, leaving me with no support. How and when should I plan on reopening?
Well, Joe, I completely feel your pain on this. This is a question that many business owners ask me every day, and no matter what business you're in, it's a very similar situation that everybody's feeling. I mean, we've had similar questions to this in previous weeks from hairdressers, from pub landlords. Now, what I can't tell you is when we're going to be back open. But obviously what's very important is that you take advantage in the meantime of all the financial options that are open to you: grants, furlough schemes, taking a break on any loan payments, on any mortgage payments, etc. So make sure you've set your personal finances up in the best possible order. And then you need to have a look at your skill set and ask yourself if you are making all of the possible use available to drive income from the skills that you've got. You're an eyelash technician. I'm not I'm not overly familiar with what other skill sets you guys have, but are there other things that you can be doing for your clients? I mean, one thing that immediately comes to mind for me as well is, it's slightly different to hairdressers, is a client needs a hairdresser, to be able to have their hair done. Whereas I guess ladies and girls are probably able to do their own eyelashes without needing to physically visit a technician. So maybe now's a fantastic time for you to look at if there's other ways of you offering your service remotely. So could you be teaching people how to do their own eyelashes? Could you be creating a YouTube channel and representing other brands? Finding a way to continue to communicate with your audience. And potentially grow your audience and develop new income streams at the time. I know I'm not helping you know when we're going to be back open and what the measures are going to be in place for you when we do, because that I can't tell you. But what I really feel you need to be doing is continuing to connect with your audience and continuing to find ways to drive some income in these really uncertain times.
Thanks, Matt. That's great advice. Remember to check back here every week for the latest video and send your questions to money@thesun.co.uk.